So let's read the final part of the art and language and see all the philosophy behind music. So the reader must be asking him or herself, but if you don't want such rigor, what is the point of this paper anyway? This is exactly the point, and to show that music is not so scientific as people say or wanted this to be, based on its apparent exactness. Question 6 in the introduction. Actually, it is much more related to our imprecise linguistic interaction than anything else, and despite of all the numbers that Winkerson has shown, he highlights at least two important parallels between music and language, and how we could make a better theory of music if we respected that. On section 7.2, the role of narrative generally, he says that thanks to the predictive properties of the brain, we can feel that the proportions among notes in melody and harmony helps us to see music as a story, and even when some notes in a composition don't make much acoustic sense, it can be justified by the upcoming note, like in a joke. And so we must realize that there is a structure behind music, and when we notice that there is this structure, like we do in a joke, for example, we feel more the story behind the music. The sentence that actually makes us laugh, the punchline, only makes sense when we know the whole story before it. Right after, in section 7.3, embodiment and emotion, he tries to promote a kind of enactive justification between music and language, lists several findings to prove his point. Concrete words, like onomatopoeias, for example, as blast, blink, freeze, frizzle, crack, yawn, and some other things that could resemble the simplicity or even the richness of the text, or some things, like the word knee, a very solid sound, and the word blob, a reference to something very blobby, or slime. Take a look. The B to L and S to L sounds allude to something very bouncy and slippery, respectively, as we see your tongue doing very abrupt movements. So when we try to say slime, blobby, you can see that your tongue makes very weird things, like the thing that we could characterize as a blobby or slimy, Spatial relations, like the words through, the R resembles the transpassing, so the R makes this sound like something abrupt is happening. Again, another word with a R to explain the previous word, and around, the movement of the mouth saying this makes a circle. So in Portuguese we don't do this. We say redondo, but in English we would say round. And that abstract concepts like harmony and melody are derived respectively from the human voice. Not by chance we call music lines as voices. So these things here are voices. And the general physical movement of things, ascending, descending, like the pitches are ascending and descending, which means if we were different with different bodies, the abstract concepts would be too. So this is kind of a strange theory, because although this contingent world makes us think that the name round is supposed to be round in English because of the circle that I make with my mouth. We don't do this in Portuguese. So it's not necessarily a true statement that the human body makes us realize or makes us create the language and music as it is. You can read the citation. We should not forget about the influence of culture in music and how different behaviors, values, and beliefs are reflected in how music affects a certain group of people. What to say about one of the most famous differences between Western and Eastern music? Mitali Joshi has said in How Does Eastern Music Differ from Western Music? That Eastern music is much more concerned about putting someone in a different state of mind with meditation, choosing for more complex melodies which are naturally more difficult to memorize, with a use of microtones, even more divided than the usual 12 tones of Western music that we have seen before. So take a look. Culture would be something that could change the purpose of music. And here we have seen that the body itself could change how music it is. So we are trying to make a science for music here, like biology. And this time we are talking about culture, like anthropology. Because of this, creating chords at least three notes in good harmony is much more difficult and uncommon in Chinese, Arabic, and Japanese music, for example. Western music is oriented around written music, while the Eastern is about oral. All this could mean that people from West are not so interested in aspects of the soul and peace of mind as at least are people from East. So what do you think? Do you think that different people have different purposes for music too? The relationship between some cultural decisions and how we interact with the world concerning our habits and beliefs and the creation and consuming of music in certain places and times of the history reveals a lot about how language, music, and behavior can help each other in their meanings. So talking about this holistic way of defining meanings in our language, all these things could be important. So is there a sociology for music? No. This Tia Deonora talks about this concept of affordance. In simpler terms, she says that some music could have been created to attend some interests of some people. Like, for example, we know that rap, the jazz music, for example, the blues, they all characterize some interests of the black people, for example. So we could actually use music to say something, to give you voice, and to attend some specific and particular purposes of some people. And for a last consideration about science, according to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy on Karl Popper's article, in fact, it is not because music theory doesn't seem to be so scientific, after all we have seen here, that this cannot be the case in the future. In this section, Popper on physics and psychoanalysis, Popper doesn't like so much the explanations of psychologists because it was too dependent on unconscious and unpredictable behaviors. But Popper allows that there are often legitimate purposes for positing non-scientific theories, and he argues that theories which start out as non-scientific can later become scientific as we determine methods for generating and testing specific predictions based on these theories. Which means that even naive and precise theories can be turned into scientific ones. However, does music really need this? As we've noticed above, music's much more interested in making us feel rather than explain itself. So feeling is much more important than explaining. Although this could be useful for a systematical composition of songs, this scientification or scientification would also transform the music into a mere computational product with no soul, no subjectivity, no background story, no true human linguistic lived expression, as we have been seeing in AI songs. So be careful. And nowadays we have these AI creating songs, and maybe we wouldn't give more attention to music anymore because we don't see any real emotion or real drama behind the words and the feelings that the instruments can convey, as we'll see in this chapter 4. This serves as an answer to our question 1 in the introduction section. The music has been created to help us express ourselves differently, more aesthetically, rather than expose interpretation of the exact contents. So this is exactly why we have created music. We are using it to say some very specific and limited things, but we do it beautifully, in a more beautiful and eccentric way. But we cannot say so much. We leave this function to the natural language, something that we have already. Actually, if you think about art has been created for this, to have no function whatsoever, but to express ourselves in a more different way. Knowing that, we will see now that the proposal of Derek Cook in creating a kind of music dictionary, not according to physical formulas, but rather related to the metaphors we can draw for certain sounds of notes and scales, no? Sequence of notes. No? So, like we have talked before, no? The pitches are not the words, but we could say that they are letters. No? And the sum of these letters can create words like we'll see here. No? To understand the semantics that Derek Cook has created in his The Language of Music, 1959, we have to consider the chromatic scale that we have seen above, and now pay attention to some new names that we can give to all these 12 pitches in terms of scale degrees and what emotions Cook has attributed to them according to some metaphorical criteria. Like, for example, that the last note of an octave gives us the feeling of conclusion, right? Because after an octave, you repeat the cycle. So the last note of the octave is the conclusion, while the middle one gives us a feeling of stability. Answering our question 3 of the introduction section. So I won't read this too much, that would be so tiresome. But I'm just telling you that we have new names for this thing. These names haven't been created by Cook, no. But this is from music theory, no. But just for you to see that the first note, you have to decide the first note. There's no right first note, but when you decide the first note, an octave would be like 8 notes after it. So tonic we have, for example, the emotion of neutrality, But in minor second, you have something like a spiritless anguish, Major second, context of finality, a tension down to the tonic. You can read all these things, a stoic acceptance, because these are not so important. The most important thing is this thing here. Knowing this, we can talk about the 16 fundamental skills that could actually convey some basic emotions, and the composer should inspire themselves on these words. A sequence of notes according to the chromatic scale to create the type of music they want. These are some basic terms of music vocabulary. So I won't read everything, rather, I would show to you guys in practice how we can convey some very specific emotions and informations with these melodies here. So, like, for example, we have this one, like 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 minor. So what are those things? I have to decide the tonic. So once I decide the tonic, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And minor or major would be a kind of accident that I can put generally in the middle pitch. So let's take a look at this, for example. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 minor. What is the meaning of 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 minor? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1 minor. Grounding a theme on the tonic, only moving away to the minor third, and returning immediately is looking at the dark side of the things in a context of immobility, neither growing to the protest nor going back to acceptance. So let's see whether we can feel that this melody here conveys the information of looking at the dark side of the things. It's kind of a weird sound, right? Let's hear it again. It's kind of a pessimistic vibe. The other one, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 major. Let's take a look. It's almost always applied to express the innocence and purity of angels in children, or some natural phenomenon that has the same qualities in the eyes of a man. So can you feel the good vibe of this melody? Let's hear it again. Take a look. My mood is kind of better now. This one is 8765 minor. Let's take a look. This one here. 8765 minor. Descending from the tonic to the dominant, passing through the sad minor seventh and distress in minor sixth. It is clearly expressing an eminently painful emotion and acceptance of or yielding to mourning, passive suffering, and despair connected with death. Let's take a look. It's kind of a weird sound. Let's take a look. My face is very... I don't know. I don't simply know how to express my emotion, but I don't like it. Jesus. Next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major. The first one, right? Growing up from tonic to dominant by major third, interval between two notes formed by two whole notes, is to express an extroverted, active, and assertive emotion of joy. So, can you see that every time that we deal with major notes, we make a good face, but if you have to deal with the minor notes, when you put an accidental beside it, you started to make a bad face. Like this one. This one is the minor version of that one. Take a look. Let's read the description. When we replace the major third with the minor third, we should expect to find the resultant phrase expressive of an extroverted feeling of pain, an assertion of lament, complaint, a protest against bad luck. Let's take a look. Can you see the problem that this pitch makes? Next one is descending 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 major. This one here. If decreasing height is expressing an imminent emotion into the listener, so can you feel this? When you are decreasing in height, you can start to feel that something will happen. Diminishing from dominant superior to the resting point, the tonic, by the major third. This is a major third, which means that you won't put any accidental on it. Will naturally communicate a sense of experiencing joy passively. That is, accepting or well receiving blessings, relief, consolation, reassurance, or completeness, along with a sense of having arrived home. So, supposed to be a good feeling, right? They're nice. Let's hear it again. I feel kind of comfortable hearing this. It seems like I have actually arrived home. This one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, minor. So the minor version of this of that one. Replacing the major with the minor third in the descending progression, we have a phrase that has been used a lot to express an imminent painful emotion in a context of finality, acceptance or giving in to grief, discouragement and depression, passive suffering and despair connected with death. Let's take a look. Can you feel the bad vibes of this sound? It seems that we receive bad news. For the last one, we don't need any explanation for this. We've talked about this before. This is the tritone. The tritone is supposed to represent the sound of the devil. Imagine that you have reached hell, and now you must hear the devil's voice. So let's hear it. It's kind of tense, right? Well, I wouldn't like to actually hear this thing in hell. So that's it. Let's just read the conclusion. We have now good evidences of a greater similarity between music and natural languages more than to an exact science. These metaphors, however, are not here to prove that music is just an imitation of human actions and in language, but a manifestation of human natural will of expressing themselves regardless of the way that they are doing it. So, of course, that we could start to do the opposite and speak about natural languages in terms of music theory, concepts, and symbols, although it would be not necessarily useful or a good idea. Imagine that we could start talk about language with those music symbols. No, yes, we can do this because they are interchangeable. No, they are the same thing, but they have different purposes. No? Music wants to speak about some very specific concepts, but in a more beautiful way. And the natural language is the opposite. It's not beautiful, but you can talk whatever you want. Music and language are, in fact, instances of a same purpose and of the inherent tendency of the human mind's intentionality. Same purpose, but different purpose at the same time. Music is a total legit mean of expressing ideas. You can express ideas with music so naturally, but in a prettier way, so to say. It is able to say less concepts, maybe two or three during a whole 5-10 minute song, but in a very eccentric, new, addictive, sparkling, contagious, heroic, depressive, sad, compound, majestic, that is, whatever metaphors you want to use, way. We hope that this paper might have clarified a lot of academic issues concerning the philosophy of music and might have inspired teachers in the field of music teaching to avoid simply expose the content without proper justification. Yes, we need justifications for everything. This work, however, was not sufficient to demonstrate that we cannot have a pragmatics for music, and we haven't showed precisely how it be the reverse job of expressing natural languages in terms of music notation, according to the conclusion that music and language are supposed to be interchangeable. So it's kind of difficult to put music in the same level, same area of natural languages, because although we have semantics, as Derek Cook has shown, and although we have syntax, as music theory has shown, we don't have pragmatics, or at least it doesn't seem that we have it, or it doesn't seem that it would be kind of useful. But in theory, we can actually do this, but how? We barely have some semantics. Like, it's kind of difficult to say one or three concepts in a music. I'm talking about pure music, by the way. Don't forget about this. So, future works should occupy themselves in developing a kind of music in use, or pragmatics for music, and propose a kind of music acts theory in an alleged music locutionary act. So that would be a kind of theory in which you could not try to adapt or fit the language between human and world, but that would be something between human and soul. So what are the things that this language can make you feel, not make you compare things like we do in normal language? Like, for example, I'm seeing an airplane, and in fact there is an airplane, so I've said the truth. This is what the speech acts do. We try to fit the world between men and the world. But the music acts theory would be something between the language and soul. So what I can feel with this kind of language. So that's it. Thank you for your attention. This is the reference. I hope to see you in the next series of videos. Thank you.